Well, good Saturday evening or Sunday morning. We're in October, and this is Charles E. Clough again from Church of Truth Center of Awakening Consciousness, and we hope that some of the thoughts and the music that come at this time can be challenging and helpful for you. This has been an interesting couple of weeks for me with my family. My wife took a bad spill in the kitchen and fell on the bad side of her shoulder and had 2 fractures. And most of you who have dealt with things like this know what kinds of changes this makes in the next few days that you have ahead of you. The emergency, seeing the doctor, and then she's going to be seeing an orthopedic surgeon. The interesting thing to watch now are the bruises that are coming all over her arm and shoulder. Bruises, of course, are the showing up of an injury. And all of us know what bruises are. Sometimes we know what caused the bruises. Other times we wind up with a bruise and we say, how did that happen? What did we hit? What did we do we weren't aware of? Bruises are all over us in different kinds of ways. We bruise mentally, we bruise emotionally, we bruise spiritually. And the bruising, of course, is because of things that somehow have bothered us. We think they have injured us. The counseling sessions over the years that I was in private practice were full of people who were bruised. They were injured. And they were bruised and injured because of things that people said, ways that they interpreted what happened. The presence of God within us wants us to know that we are kind of responsible for a lot of these things that we think hurt us. And it has to do with how we think about them, how we appropriate them into our lives, how the things that happen become a part of us. The Spirit of God within us would probably see that we would have very few what we consider bruises if we kind of knew how to roll with the punches. In sports, one of the first things you learn how to do is how to fall. This is really true in football. When I was in college, it was a small college. So for 3 years, I played football. And after every football game, we were covered with injuries, small injuries, of course, and in the next 2 or 3 days, we were covered with bruises. At that time, I was speaking at different churches every weekend at the youth groups. And they would see these bruises. And the bruises attested to the fact that I had played a football game. Life is hard. And we're full of bruises that attest to that. Injuries that are physical, emotional, psychological. When we watch all these fires and the consequences of the virus when it invades someone's body and how it affects the whole family and everyone that's around. These are tremendous injuries and they leave a lot of bruises. Bruises that we don't have control over, meaning bruises that we have because of injuries that we haven't had control over. An accident would be an example. It happens outside of us and it happens to us, being burned or whatever it might be. Some accidents probably happen because we're careless. And this is where we sometimes need to slow down, not be in a hurry. But a lot of the bruises we have, as I referred to before, come because of how we look at things, how we think about things, how we respond to things. And the Spirit of God within us, the presence of God within us, wants us to have as few bruises as possible. I mean, we can't get away from how this life is. But we can think differently about some things so that we don't get harmed when we don't need to. For example, when we misinterpret things that people say and take it personally, we can be bruised. And how common it is to find someone who was hurt by something someone else did, only to find out that person didn't even intend for it to happen, or it wasn't even related to them. But there are times where the person does say what they say, and these are times that even if the person said what they said and meant what they meant, we shouldn't have let it hurt us. We should have been above it. It's an injury we have because we let something get to us that didn't have to get to us. We all kind of fight periods of depression and we feel discouraged and whatever. One time in the first church when I was a young pastor, I went through a period of time, several weeks, where there was just kind of a gloom that had come on me and I couldn't get a hold of it. I didn't understand why it was happening and it was affecting how I felt and how I related. I never told anyone about this. I just carried it inside because I should have been above it, I thought. I shouldn't let things like this happen. But the biggest frustration is I couldn't pin it down. I couldn't find out why I was feeling that way. I went with a lot of other ministers to a ministers' conference at Thousand Pines above Crestline, which is near us. And one of my friends, I started talking with him. And I said, Ben, I have no idea what's going on and why I've been feeling like I have. I've searched everything. I've talked to God about what's going on, and I do not understand it. And Ben looked at me and he said, you don't have to understand it. It doesn't matter whether you understand it. Give it over to the spiritual presence of God within you. Turn it over to the Holy Spirit. God knows what's going on. The presence of God within us knows what's going on. So you don't have to especially turn it over to this God presence and let it go. And I had a catharsis that was just absolutely wonderful. And I learned that we don't have to know everything that's going on. We can turn over to God, the presence of God within us, what we don't understand, what we haven't figured out, what we haven't got a hold of yet. We don't have to figure it out. We don't have to understand it. We don't have to have all the pieces of the puzzle to work on the part of the puzzle that we're working on. And this was a great thing to realize and a wonderful thing to experience. We can't figure out everything involved with the fires, the virus, the political situation. We can talk to people. We are talking to people. We're listening to the news. We're trying to pray about it, think about it, or whatever. But we may have to say, we can't figure this out. We're probably not going to figure it out. It's beyond what we can put together. But that's okay. We're going to release it to the spiritual dimension. We're going to turn it loose to the presence of God within us. We don't have to understand it. We can let it go. And this is, of course, what faith is. And this is what hope is. This is how we get a hold of faith and hope, because we can release it to that which is beyond us. God's presence understands it, I guarantee you that. The wider spiritual dimension understands it. You can bet on that. Do we have to understand all of it? Nope. Because we don't, we won't. It's bigger and more than we are. But we can bring it out, let it go, and turn it loose. And this is what we have to do. And you know what? There's freedom that comes with that. Having to understand everything, that's a heavy burden. Having to have answers for everything, that's a heavy thing. That's more than our minds can get a hold of. And it looks like no one's mind is really getting a hold of it. And we trust ourselves to the more than we are. The God all, that everything is happening within. Everything that's happening is happening within God, who is all. Everything is taking place within God. And we are a part of that everything God is. And this is why we know that regardless of what's happening, it's somehow going to turn out. That a temporary slam dunk is somehow going to wind up winning the game. And we're a part of the winners. Those who are connected to God are part of the winners. We're on the winning team, and we want everybody to join us and be a part of that. Because where it's winning is a whole environment of love and caring and concern and forgiveness and acceptance. Our arms are open to everyone who will join us in openness to God and trusting Him to bring these things to a wonderful conclusion. My friends, that's the trust and the faith we have. We thank God, and so it is.
We made a journey to the mountains so we could play in nature's fountains. We found paths and trails to walk and roam, which made us feel that we'd come home. Nature's dream of clear, cool water, nature's dream of forests high, nature's dream of life abounding. We preserve this, you and I. sparkling, nature's potion, drifting slowly, rushing fast. Enjoy its beauty and make it last. Nature's dream of clear, cool water, nature's dream of forests high, nature's dream of life abounding. We preserve this, you and I. Majestic mountains to the sky, hawks and eagles gliding by. Nature's creatures on the forest floor must live and thrive, so there will be more. The fragrant forest fills the breeze with earth's aroma and scent of trees, grass and flowers all around, so alive with nature's sound.